everybody's journey is their journey. And what's for you is for you. And so, you know, it can be difficult. It can be disheartening sometimes, maybe when a client doesn't see your vision or, you know, maybe a brand doesn't take you seriously. But I always understand that at the end of the day, I'm doing my very best and I'm showing up in the way that rings true to me.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode here of Off the Cuff, where conversations lead to inspiration. I'm your host, Christian Palmer, and today I'm joined by founder and principal publicist of TWPR, a full-service communications consultancy that specializes in amplifying the stories of purpose-driven brands through powerful storytelling and social impact. She has worked for a variety of clients and brands, ranging from CURLFEST, Mimconnect, CultureCon, T1 Entertainment and Sports, Soy AfroLatina, and so much more. She's been featured on Adweek, Essence, Black Enterprise, and is inspiring and elevating small businesses across multiple industries by reaching their goals. This is a conversation you don't want to miss. So without further ado, here's Off the Cuff with Tequilla White. What's going on? Talk to me.
I'm feeling good. I'm excited.
You look great. Love the fit.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Colorful. Spring has sprung.
It has, you know, and they say, you know, spring is so important because the first day of spring is actually my birthday, March 20th. So it's a special time and stuff. But listen,
to you, friend.
I appreciate you. Listen, it's a full circle moment. We're actually here in Brooklyn. It's funny though, because I was like, through my research, I was thinking about the first time we met. Yeah. And it was in 2019. And we actually met in Brooklyn as well.
Yes,
do you remember that?
CultureCon, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, and full circle moments. And I think it's a beauty when you really connect with somebody in a very authentic and genuine level, that no matter how much time has gone by, full circle moments really happen. Yes. And I'm just happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So before we even dive into like the bigger story, the powerhouse that you are, all the incredible things that you're doing on the ground, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about the early life, you know, and really dive into your early upbringings. Like, you grew up in the boogie down Bronx,
yes,
right?
Did.
Always representing it. Talk to me a little bit more about their upbringings, right? What are some of those upbringings that we didn't see who Tequilla was as a young girl growing up? And what are some of those early teachings that the Bronx taught you?
The Bronx made me who I am. So it was just my mother and I, raised by a single parent. I'm an only child. So her and I were like thick as thieves. We went through everything together. And just watching her, not necessarily struggle, because I don't like to use language like that, but just her perseverance, her strength, her ability to make shit happen, and always instill in me, like, just always keep your morals intact. And there's a certain code that you live by. It's unspoken, but you know right from wrong. You know what feels good to you in your gut, and always lead with that. And I feel like I take that with me every single day, every place that I go. If something doesn't feel right to do or say, or doesn't feel right in my gut, I immediately trust that. And I think that just growing up in the Bronx, and being able to kind of see the tale of two cities, of like going to LaGuardia in Manhattan High School, and then coming back on the 2 train back to the Bronx in high school, and understanding like New York is so crazy. Yeah. Like it's so crazy that I could sing in German and French during the day and then come back and have to completely switch my mind to keep my head on a swivel. And I think that that duality and that ability for me to be exposed to so many different things and understand that I'm a whole person, that's something that's been really, really important for me as I move through the industry and I meet all different types of folks. I know who I am, and I think that that is something that she always instilled in me as a young child, to just be who you are, be yourself, be outspoken, don't be afraid to speak up for yourself or for others.
Wow, I love that. And did it take you a while to kind of really hone in on those?
Oh, yeah. You're always gonna have people that try and like persuade you to move a certain way, or say like, you know, you can't have certain opportunities if you don't associate with certain type of people or do certain types of things. Yeah. But you find your tribe and you find your people along the way. But it definitely was something that took time for me to hone in as I became more mature and more confident in who I was.
That's beautiful. And, you know, and I think that speaks to the hustler mentality that you had, right? Because since I met you back in 2019, and I think learning more about your story, the hustle mentality was always at the forefront.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
tell me about this mindset. Like, I know mom has really played a big role into this,
Yes.
but like, how was that such a pivotal moment for you now that you tackle this industry?
Yeah, I mean, being a black woman in a predominantly white industry in itself is always going to mean that I don't have access to certain resources or platforms or networks. And so that means I have to get out there and I have to make myself known. I have to make my clients known. I have to be aggressive. I have to not take no for an answer. And that was the Bronx. Like, you couldn't really play the back, because if you played the back, that wouldn't be good for you.
Yeah.
People needed to know you're not one to be played with. You need to have respect. You respect others and you demand respect from others as well. And so I think that growing up in a space and place like that just sets me apart from other people, because things that certain people might feel worried to confront, I'm not scared to do that, because if you grew up what I grew up around, this industry stuff is easy.
You know, that's crazy because, you know, even going through the rabbit hole of just doing a little bit more homework into your story, like you said, you didn't take no as an answer. And rejection was a lot of the things that you actually encountered, especially when you were applying to these jobs, corporate America.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, though, because even looking at some of these, you know, just doing the homework, I was just like, you really you didn't take no as an answer, because it really fueled you, right? And learning more about it, it was just like these rejections that you were getting, it was telling you that you didn't really have experience in some of these roles. Like, tell me how you navigated those rejections that you were experiencing at the time, and how did it translate into you just having the confidence to build your own thing, TWPR right now, to build it from the ground up?
Yeah, I think that rejection for me has never been scary, because I know it's one or two things. It either means you need to keep working, or it just means the opportunity is not for you. And I really am strong in my faith and understand that the steps are already ordered. So if something is not for me, it's not for me. And so when it came to the beginning where, you know, I had my degree, I had 3 or 4 internships under my belt when I graduated, and I was applying with confidence, thinking that, you know, at the least I would be able to, you know, get an entry-level role. And a lot of the conversations were, oh, you don't have quite enough for that, but you have too much to be an intern of ours because you know too much. So it was kind of like, well, how will I get experience if you don't hire me to get the experience? So it was kind of a circular, clear indication of the systemic racism within the industry to block me out, to say I don't necessarily have this or that, but you would see white counterparts being able to get internships because they had certain connections or knew certain people. And so I said, okay, that's no problem. If experience is the problem, I have tons of really talented people that I love and that I know, and I will use them as my first clients, and I will make them pop, and then I'll come back and say, look at my portfolio, look what I've done, look at my case studies, and then I just never had to, because it wasn't for me. And I was able to work with brands that I love, work with larger corporations, work with agency partners, but under my own umbrella. So I just took the rejection as either a sign that maybe you're not quite ready for that yet. So maybe you should, you know, take a couple of classes or find a mentor to shadow, or maybe that's just not for you. And 9 times out of 10, it just wasn't for me.
Wow. And you took, you know, you made everything possible to create your own thing. And that's a beautiful thing that, you know, that you leaned into, you took that bet on yourself, and you transitioned into doing and building this consultancy that you have now. And I've seen it firsthand of like numerous people, we both know the same people, of how you're able to elevate them, take them from point A to point B, right? And I think there was one thing that's very interesting, even before we talk about the success stories, I want to talk about those early moments of you transitioning and building TWPR, because there was one thing, you know, going through your feed, I came across this post, and it was very interesting because I'll read the caption, like for quote, it said, I remember wanting to give up when it seemed like I would never get my own clients. I persevered. I actively pitched myself. I paid for my logo, my business cards, and attended panels. I networked, I cold called. I was able to land clients. First one, then 2, then 3. Take us back to that experience.
I remember that so vividly, just trying to understand what PR even was, because in my mind, media traditionally was people in front of the camera. So anchors, journalists, radio DJs, like people who I could see, that's what I connected media to. So as I began to learn from school that, you know, there's marketers, there's advertisers, there's publicists, there's agents, there's people behind the scenes that are making this happen for folks, I was really interested in that because that's just a connection to my personality. I'm a person that, you know, doesn't really like to have tons of attention. People who know, and I kind of like to make things happen for people behind the scenes that I care for. And so in the beginning, I didn't know anyone who did PR. I definitely didn't know any Black women who did PR. And so I really had to just dig in and find out, okay, who is doing it? Who's doing it well? How do you pitch? How do you make connections with the media? You know, if there was an event happening, I would come out of my bubble and say, let me hop on the train from the Bronx and go and shake hands and give business cards and just let people know who I am and what I do and that I can be of service, and always come across with confidence. Never nothing about my business is small. Nothing about what I do is, oh, I'm trying and meek and mild. It was like, hi, I'm Tequilla. I own a consultancy, TWPR, nice to meet you. What kind of clients do you work with? What kind of work do you do? Are you looking for publicity? And I think that makes people feel safe. Yeah. And so it kind of snowballed into, you know, getting referrals from friends, getting referrals from now clients, and being able to, each and every time I moved up a rung, my confidence grew. And so that, in conjunction with doing the work, has really propelled me to the place that I am now, because I never get complacent. I never say, you know, this is good enough for me. I'm always like, well, did you get GMA? Did you get Today Show? Did you get Vogue? Did you? Because I always feel like there's more to do.
And where does that drive come from?
Being from the Bronx and seeing people struggle and barely be able to have the basic necessities to live, and understanding that the little piece of what I do provides access and resources in some way. It provides a platform for folks to provide more resources to other people. So I think I owe it to them, really, who have believed in me from the start, to really show up, because I'm not just Tequilla. I'm an extension of my mom, an extension of the Bronx, an extension of everyone who had a little piece of building me.
I love how you're tapping into just you, you know, and, you know, and I think we could see that. We can see that evolution of Tequilla growing up in the Bronx, and like you said, everybody kind of sprinkled a little bit to build who you are today. And I love how you lean into your faith. And I think one of the things that really stuck out to me that you just said is just like, it's already written. Yeah. And, you know, I think sometimes too, where we are always in life of just being very anxious of like where the next looks like, of like what that next opportunity looks like. How do you keep yourself grounded?
It's difficult. You know, the spirit of comparison, especially when you're in an industry that is so, you know, announcement heavy. It's a lot of show and tell. And so when you're maybe not showing up as much because you're doing the work, sometimes you can say, well, man, am I really doing it? Or if a list comes out and they're the top 20 publicists doing X, Y, and Z work and you're not included, you're like, oh, damn, like, am I really doing what I think I'm doing? But you really have to understand that everybody's journey is their journey. And what's for you is for you. And so, you know, it can be difficult. It can be disheartening sometimes, maybe when a client doesn't see your vision, or you know, maybe a brand doesn't take you seriously. But I always understand that at the end of the day, I'm doing my very best, and I'm showing up in the way that rings true to me, and I know my assignment. And so that keeps me centered when the world is cluttered and crazy and I'm stressed, or a client doesn't pay on time, or whatever happens. I'm like, you know what? Guide me. I just say it aloud. I'm just like, guide me, give me clarity, give me strength, and help me understand why this is happening. And each and every time, it might not happen when I want it, but it happens where I get a sign. And it's like maybe 6 months down the line, that very client that I wanted is now exposed for something. And I'm like, wow, I dodged that. In the moment, I wanted it so very bad, but it was protection. So I try not to question him, and I try my best to let him guide me and trust in him, because he's covered me this far. So I think his track record's pretty good.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. And it's crazy though because I think the last year or so, I feel like I've been in such a better space. Just a lot of therapy has helped, a lot of being at ease, and a lot of conversations like the one we're having now is just like it's real, it's authentic. It's pulling the curtain and really talking about some of the things that we often don't see. And I just appreciate, how you walk in faith and, like you said, I'm not going to even question it's protection. It's preparation for that next opportunity. And as we go kind of through memory lane, we touched upon some of the things we have already been doing for some of the clients, but I want to talk a little bit more and kind of give the audience kind of a broader picture of like the power of PR, right? Let's talk about what PR is, the sole purpose of it. And I think on the flip side, let's talk about what PR is not. Yeah. I think to really showcase that difference and really give the audience a little bit more of a context from your perspective.
So public relations is really managing brand reputation, and that can be in a myriad of ways. So it can be visibility, which means having folks see you, letting people know that you're here. It can be establishing credibility. So let's say you're a brand that is in a cluttered space and you want to assert yourself as an authority in a space. PR can help you do that. It can be helping to broker relationships with other brands in terms of strategic partnerships. It can be event production where you are taking a campaign and making it experiential for folks and giving them a connection. It can be media coverage, which is just interviews, whether it's a podcast, it can be on television, it could be a write-up, it can be in print. So it's really about managing a brand, understanding how you show up in the world, and communicating to your stakeholders, whomever that may be, whether it's your customers, your investors, whoever it is, how you add value, whether that's the local level, national level, global level, is just managing that reputation.
That's beautiful.
So on the flip side, it's not social media. Social media and PR work together rather closely. However, it is not the same thing. And then when we're talking about events, there are opportunities where I've worked with clients on events, but in terms of the granular production of it, the venues, the decor, that's an event producer. And a lot of the times I work rather closely with them, but that is not necessarily PR. So I like to tell people that you have the umbrella of marketing, and then underneath it could be paid advertising, it could be organic, it could be PR, it could be social, it could be a myriad of those things, but the marketing umbrella kind of just encompasses how your brand is showing up across platforms.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I appreciate you breaking that down because I think it's very important for us to understand that. And even to me, like as a small business owner, kind of really building from the ground up, it's important for me to also conceptualize that, to see, okay, this is what it is and this is what it's not, and being able to differentiate the two. When building a team, you're able to understand what you need. Correct. Right? And I'm curious to know from like advice standpoint, right? We touched upon a lot of these opportunities where people, like I mentioned, are building from the ground up. Like, what advice would you share to the small businesses, the entrepreneurs that are building from the ground up, that may not necessarily have a brand story or know how to start pitching? Yeah. Like, what are some of the things or key takeaways that they should keep in mind when building a business or when thinking about from the PR perspective?
Yeah, I love that you asked that because it's something that I think about very often. I work with primarily Black and brown business owners, and I find that the want to work with me is there, but the resources are not. And that's just a further extension, obviously, of systemic racism within this country, and lack of resources. And so for me, I try my best to stand in that gap. And so I'm actually going to be launching a course called Life's a Pitch for folks who can't necessarily hire me for monthly retainers, but I'm teaching them how to write a pitch, how to build a list, how to pitch themselves, how to make sure that their assets are high quality. So whether it's high quality photos or videos, making sure that their website looks clean, making sure their social is up to date and consistent. And so it's a 6-week accelerator. And in that time, I'm kind of breaking down the fundamentals for them, because it's not necessarily that PR is difficult to do. It's just that, one, it's time consuming, and two, it's about relationship building. And so if you don't have the time or you don't have kind of the knack for building relationships, it can be difficult to do while still trying to run the business. And so that's why I always say, if you can get grants or if you can get funding and pour it into your marketing team, it will really help to grow your brand. But if you're at a place where you can't yet, PR technically is a luxury. So I would invest more on your day-to-day business, making sure your inventory is right if you have a product, making sure if you have a service that you're getting testimonials from those folks that you're providing a service to, really having proof points to how you're adding value, how you're showing up. And everyone does have a brand story. Everyone has a why. Everyone remembers why they decided to get that LLC, why they decided to get that trademark or website or whatever it is. So I'm really here to pull out that why and to create a story around that.
Wow. What are some of your go-to questions when pulling that why out?
Who do you serve and why is usually the first thing, and that usually gets the ball rolling because it makes you really think about what am I doing and why am I doing it? Outside, of course, to make money, why would you do this instead of anything else? And is this something you would do if you didn't get money from it? And most of the time people say yes because I'm really passionate about it, or I really want to help this community, or I'm really passionate about fashion or music or whatever it is. So I try to start there to get people to tap in first to that gut feeling of like, wow, I really love doing this when it's hard, when I'm not making money, when I want to quit, I keep going. And I think that that helps me to kind of pull out the heart of the story, because everybody's doing the same thing. There's other publicists, there's other Black women publicists, but I'm Tequilla and I do it in a special way, and I know how to articulate that. And once you're able to do that, you're good, you're golden.
Listen, we're hearing it now, you know what I'm saying, front and center. And it's crazy because I remember thinking back, and you talk a lot about kind of that why and really uncover that why. I was tuning into like a one-on-one, like a panel conversation. Trevor Noah was there, and he talked about the 4 Ps. His mother incorporated the 4 Ps. And it was, when you finally find what you're passionate about, that's when you're ultimately going to transition into your purpose, right? But that's really hard to do, passion into purpose, right? Yes. And then once you're at your purpose, you're at your ultimate peace because you're doing what you love. And then when you're doing the things that you love and you're at your ultimate peace, that's when the prosperity comes. That's when the money comes, right?
I love that.
Out of the 4 Ps, where do you think you are now?
Absolutely in my peace zone. I'm definitely in my peace zone. I'm definitely I have lots of clarity around who I am, around how I serve, around why I serve. I have love around me. There's growth everywhere around me. I'm in that place where prosperity to me is more tied to my impact than financial means, because I have seen so much wealth and so much poorness in my life that it doesn't really move me. Money doesn't really move me because I know it's so fleeting, and I know that there are people who have had millions and billions of dollars and they're bankrupt. So I try not to place worth in that piece of the prosperity, and more so on how are you impacting the people around you? How are you bringing light into rooms? How are you pulling someone out of darkness? Those are the things that are legacy. And so how much money you have really isn't going to move the needle when you're not here anymore. So prosperity for me is super tied to my peace and super tied to my impact.
Wow, I love that. And thank you for sharing that. You know, in the midst of the transition of the power of PR as well, you know, we talked about the Life's a Pitch course that you have coming out. But let's talk a little bit more about the businesses that are maybe ready, right? Like, what's that aha moment where a business, a small business, or an agency may think about when would be the right time when they should be bringing up, you know, a consultant, a PR agency, someone like yourself to come in and help support their brand?
There's a bunch of different times. It could be if you have a particular partnership or campaign coming up and you want to publicize that. It could be if you're fundraising. A lot of the time folks give more money to brands that have press coverage, that have some visibility, that there's clarity around the brand, how they serve. If there's some big wins, let's say, you know, you sold out in one day from your product that went viral, that's the time to hop in. If you're a thought leader, let's say you are an expert in something and you want to get other clients for the service that you provide or the knowledge that you have, that's an absolutely great time to hop in and say, hey, you know, this is trending and I'm an expert in X, Y, and Z, and here's how you should approach it, because that establishes credibility. And so I would say there are several different points, but in my mind, it should be, if you can, it should be something that's always on, because you want to kind of have a steady drumbeat of coverage around your brand, because it gets lost. If you don't have consistency, like let's say you have a brand and they might have hired someone for 3 months and they have really strong press for 3 months, if they do not continue that, they'll get lost when their competitor continues to have the steady drumbeat. So it should really be something that you're considering throughout the year for your business, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I could definitely see how if the consistency is not there, then you could definitely get lost in the sauce there.
Yes.
You talked about the level of impact, and we, like I said, we know a lot of mutual people that you have the level of impact, and it's a phenomenal thing. And you also spoke about systemic racism, right, when walking into these rooms. And you build, like, you really come with the level of confidence, right? The first time I met you, from right now we're having a conversation, yo, spot on, right?
Yeah.
And it's vibrating, and it's something very vibrant, and I appreciate that. When you walk into these rooms, right, when you walk into these rooms as a black woman, as a black publicist, when who you may be pitching to, who may be connecting with doesn't look like you, like, how do you continue to remain your identity? What are some of the intentions that you set at the forefront when you go into these meetings?
Yeah, I try my best to have a goal in mind whenever not an agenda, a goal. So an agenda is more so like you're trying to get something out of someone, or you are looking how you can win. A goal for me is like, okay, I want to meet 3 people and get their emails or get their LinkedIns or find a connection for me to follow up with. I want to build 3 separate relationships from strangers that I've never met, not people who know my friends and are saying, hey, this is Tequilla, nice to meet you. I want to go up to 3 strangers. That's my goal. So that kind of gets me excited, because when I go to the event or I go in that room, I'm coming prepared to say, okay, let me scan, let me see who looks like they have good energy, who's smiling, who when I walked into the room and I said good morning, good evening, good afternoon, said it back.
Right.
That's a tie. Find something common, compliment them. I love your shirt, I love your shoes. What brings you here? Trying to just get a read of your tribe or like-minded individuals always helps, because it's not necessarily that I only connect with other black women. There's white women that have been allies and have really helped me to grow my business and grow as a person. So I come in as me every time. I'm gonna keep the same type of energy, type of person.
For
If you
sure.
see me in 2019 and you see me in 2023, you're gonna get the same tea. So I think people appreciate that, especially in an industry where people switch up and change masks very often. I think that sets me apart and people feel they can trust me. And so that helps a lot.
That's beautiful. Leaning on that impact, right? We talked about it. 2019 tequila, 2023 tequila, same tea. And the level of success, we named some of the brands that you worked with early on, right?
Yes.
The level of success is there. When you look back at the tons and numerous clients that you've worked with, is there one in particular or one success story that comes to mind that kind of reminded you that was your calling all along?
Poetry Me Please. Poetry Me Please. He's from
Talk
the
to
Bronx. I'm from the Bronx. I loved poetry.
That's
I was
the
in poetry
LBZ.
slams. And he's such a kind person. He works so hard. I'm a kind person. I work so hard. And being able to have a Pix 11, being able to have an NBC, being able to have an Ebony, being able to have national titles and local ones, highlight the work that he's doing, the impact that he's making in his community, means everything to me.
Wow.
Because that access is not granted a lot to people from the Bronx specifically. A lot of the times coverage is reserved for folks from other parts of the city. And so whenever I'm able to have a client that's from where I'm from, that understands how we grew up, that means everything to me. And I think that his gratefulness and his humility to say, like, I trust you and I know you got it, really has made me tap into, okay, how do I tell this story? How do I provide as much reach and access as I can for this platform? Because it's not only something that everyone should see, but it's coming from such a purposeful place. And for me, focusing on social impact is something that I've always done. So whether I'm working with tech, entertainment, fashion, education, it has to have impact for me. It has to be helping someone. So that being something full circle for me really, really means a lot. It really
Wow.
means a lot to me.
That's beautiful. Yo, Rush, we did not plan this.
We did not.
We did not say that. That's all coming from the heart.
Yes.
You know, I'm proud of you, bro. Keep cooking. You have a phenomenal person on your end. And I'm so happy you were able to share that.
Yes.
You know, in the last couple of questions here, we talked about the why, and story and really discovering that brand story is very important to you. Out of all that you've been doing, I'm curious to know, like, when you look at the great scheme of things and we touch upon some of the things here, what is your why and what keeps you going each and every day? And when you find moments of discomfort or feel like you're giving up, like, talk to me a little bit more about that why.
Yeah, my why is really the people. Like, I literally am the people's champ. Like, if it's for the people, I'm gonna do it. And I feel like that drives me because I understand what this media landscape looks like, and I have a look behind the curtain, so I'm able to see producers and what they look like and understand that if they don't get a pitch around a Black or brown business, they can't highlight that. So if you don't have a representative that really thinks that this is important and thinks that this needs to be seen, we're gonna continue to see a lack of diversity across not just media, but brand partnerships. And we constantly see brands fumbling and dropping the ball over and over again. So it's important for me to be in those rooms and advocate and look at a campaign and say, that doesn't look quite right, or that doesn't sound quite right to me, or this is not gonna go over well for people who look like me or have life experience like me. And so the impact that I'm able to make through the knowledge that I have of the industry and the knowledge that I have from my community and melding the two is really what drives me, because I know I'm in a very unique space and place that a lot of people cannot say. Like, I encompass a lot of identities, a lot of different identities, and a lot of different experiences, and that really drives me because, like I said, I understand my assignment. I know it's bigger than me, so I understand that every time I show up in a room, every time I show up looking like this to a meeting, every time I hop on the Zoom call in a do-rag or with my hoops on or whatever it is, it's not just for me. It's for those people who can't do it, who have to wear their hair pressed for their job, or who can't speak up when they feel belittled in a meeting. So every time I speak up and say, absolutely not, I'm not saying just absolutely not for me. I'm saying it for everyone who doesn't have a chance to do that.
I love that. And you really are the people's champ. You know, looking back at Tequila, who was raised with so much love and support and so much confidence, what would you share to the younger, to Tequila, looking back?
Don't dim your light for anyone. Don't feel like you have to shrink or be small or not speak up or not wear a certain thing or not say a certain thing because you don't want to offend or you don't want to ruffle feathers, because white counterparts have no filter. They will come in the room and say whatever they want to say, whether they're qualified or not. So I would say to her, like, don't doubt yourself. Like, when you're going out for those internships or for those jobs and they're telling you this rate, push back. Say, can we go a little higher? Or I decline. Like, I really would have started a lot earlier, knowing not just my worth, but just knowing that in this industry, there's so much access that you can have if you just ask for it.
Yeah. Yo, you're so right about that. Like, literally.
Their budget is there. The money is there. And they'll give it. But if you don't say anything, they will lowball you. But if you're like, actually, I spoke to such and such who just worked with you, and they told me that the rate was actually this. And then all of a sudden it's, I think we can accommodate. But if you're scared or you're like, well, maybe they won't work with me if I push back, then you don't get it. Closed mouths don't get fed. So I think that that's something I would tell her from the jump. Like, if it's a no, once again, it's not for you. But don't regret not asking for something because out of fear.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes it's really hard to really combat that fear, right, or that self-doubt. But in those moments, like you said, you're not doing it just for yourself. You're doing it for everybody around you. You know, and we really spoke about, a ton, and I really appreciate you walking us through the journey here. But I really want to highlight in the last couple of minutes here of just like, what's next for TWPR? Like, what do you have cooking up? We talked about the Life's a Pitch.
Yes.
Like, for, the people tuning in who may be looking at this episode right now, it's like, nah, I need her on my team. Like, how can they get started?
Yeah, so I'm always accessible. If someone reaches out to me, I always give them my time and of myself, even if they're not quite ready for PR. I'll still talk to them. I'll still let them know, like, how the industry works and maybe give them some ideas on how they could get started. Definitely reach out to me. I'm accessible with email. I'm accessible on social, wherever I am. Definitely reach out to me. I would say what's next for me is not knowing what's next and just being open to receiving whatever comes to me. So I'm open to new clients. I'm open to new experiences. I want to travel for work a lot more. I want to do a lot more work internationally. I want to do some more philanthropic work within my community in the Bronx. I'm getting married. I'm moving.
Yes, congrats. I did
so
see that.
much.
Congrats. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
So
blessing.
It's just growth all around me, joy, peace. I have clarity around who I am, and I'm excited to not know what's coming and just to lean into that.
I love that. Listen, I wanted to take this time to give you your flowers for the level of impact, for what you do, for being so confident, for seeing the numerous of lives and brands and companies and businesses that you are inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Just thank you for walking in your faith. Thank you for being present. Thank you for all that you do. And, you know, the more you that continue to do, the more I feel like you should just take the time to reel all that in. You know what I'm saying? And I know sometimes the industry is just so fast paced that we always got to be on like, okay, we did this event, now we're on to the next. But I would say, you know, I'm glad to have you here because I think it's a space for us to just go through memory lane and to give you those flowers because you definitely deserve them.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we always flip it back to the guests to say, who would you give your flowers to?
How many bouquets do I have?
Listen, as many bouquets you want.
Black women, first and foremost, and the men and women who love us and support us. Those are that's very important because having people who love you, who look out for you, who protect you is critical when you are always having a target on your back and vice versa. So community, and really, I would probably say, probably you. Yeah, I want to give them back to you because I've watched you just as you've watched me. And I remember being in that food court with you, sitting downstairs.
Yo, I do remember
I remember it. And we talked and we vibed and we connected and we said, you know what, I got you, you got me. And you've always looked out and you've always been consistent. And I think that a lot of people don't see you and the full impact of your work, but I do. And I want to give them back to you. Thank
you. That means a lot, and I appreciate that. I fully accept those, and just thank you for your time. You know, and I think I'm also starting this as well, where I just want to give the flowers to all those small businesses, the entrepreneurs who are doing what they're doing day in and day out. Right? We have a resource here that we can tap into. Right? We have conversations like this. That's important. To know that you're not alone. You may be closer to where you are right now. So keep striving, keep doing it. And always remember why you started in the first place. You know, and I think that why always kind of keeps me grounded, you know. So Tequila, thank you just for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your presence. I wish you much success. And we won't be watching you, you know what I'm saying?
Well, you know, we here.
Yeah,
so
we'll
be around.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it. That was Off the Cuff with Tequila White.